Yo guys, what's going on? Ricky here. So I'm gonna show y'all 5 tips so that you can get your low end sounding super tight and groovy. So in tip number 1, I'm gonna show you how to set the faders right, so you can get the right level between your kick and your bass. In tip number 2, I'm gonna show you how to saturate, how to use a multi-band saturator to get the right amount of harmonic content in your kick drum. In tip number 3, I'm gonna show y'all fundamental EQing and how to carve out the kick drum so that everything else in the mix has the right amount of space. And so with tip number 4, I'm going to show you how to create a dynamic EQ using an Ableton rack to create an even better kick and bass relationship. And tip number 5 is going to be compression, so you can create the right amount of space for your kick and bass in the mix.
Cool, guys. So first tip, the most important tip, the most fundamental tip is setting your levels right. You get your levels right, everything else is right. By getting your levels right, you're setting, everything else is set up to do adjustments, right? You don't want to do a large EQ or something. Just change the level, man. And if you need a boost, you need to cut a little bit, then you'll do that with an EQ. Get your levels down first. How do you know what is the best? How do you know what levels you need to set your elements in? So you reference. In the last video, I talked about referencing. Referencing is like fundamental. You need to reference in order to match vibes of other tracks. So you reference, and that way you'll know where, like for example, a bass line will lie in the mix. So if it lies in the front or if it lies in the back of the mix, for example, like a tech house track, that'll be in the front of the mix all the time. Any bass house track, any tech house track, you'll hear them. Boom, bass line, front of the mix, no matter what. For techno, right, it's more like a low rumble, and if you do have a bass line, it's just a driving groove. This is how this track is. So let's take a listen. So I think that sounds pretty good already, but just to show y'all, I'm gonna lower. So the kick is anchored, right? So just remember, you have an anchored kick. You set it to something. Here we go. Let's bring down the level. So here, I'm just bringing down the level of my bass line. And I'm just going up and feeling where that bass should be, right? And where it sounds right, just about right. So I'm just going up the fader. I really like it where it sounds right about right there. Okay, check your levels. Anchor the kick and go and move your bass to where you feel it's right. Okay, now tip number 2. Tip number 2 is saturation. And you might be asking, what do you mean saturation? Because I like to saturate things and then I EQ them, because with saturation, you're adding harmonic content into the mix, into that element. So the reason why saturation is important is because sometimes your mix can sound like it's missing something. And sometimes, man, I need to add a little something more, but then you add it and it's like, oh my God, it doesn't fit, it's distorting, it's clashing. And many times what you need is just a good little saturation, and it'll take care of that issue, of that emptiness feeling. So for example, if I take out this saturator, right? you can absolutely hear that the kick changes in character quite a bit. But let me show you what I'm doing. So let me turn these off. And let's solo the kick. So many times in a lot of these tracks, you're struggling to get the right loudness level because your kick drum has a lot of low mids and your bass line has a lot of low mids too. So you have to figure out, but then you turn the kick down and then it's not right. The vibe isn't right. And so one of the things that I've come across is using a saturator in this way where I'm only saturating the low mid band from 100 to 300 hertz. I turn it down, that low mid band, but then I saturate it. So I'm increasing the harmonic content there, but I'm turning it down. So there's still presence there. So let's hear it. And that low mid, those low mids, man, they're important to have. So that's why you saturate them. But they can clash with your bass. So saturation, very important. And then EQ. Many times, and this is a bit of a different EQ. I usually don't EQ like this, but I noticed that this kick was missing quite a bit of stuff down here, and so that's because I was referencing, and so I boosted right here, and that actually did help. So let's take a listen. By listening to the entire mix as a whole, you can there was a lot of high end information. So I'm cutting right here. I'm allowing a little bit of that high end. The kick, the kick has a lot of it has the entire frequency spectrum. So you have to carve it in a way where it's present still in the mix, but you're allowing for other things to live in the mix as well. Yeah, the kick is hard. It's a tough. Once you get the kick and bass relationship, then your track is you're 90% there, honestly. And so this is without. So I'm just taming it, adding a little bit of low end in there. And so here's what the entire mix. Crystal clear, man. You can totally tell. So, and then I realized that I wanted the kick, that it was still missing a little something. So I added another saturated in there. And so this is just a little extra thing. I put a saturated right there. It just goes way harder. And this is this plugin is incredible. Heavy duty mixing plugin, Oxford Inflator. Okay. Now, for tip number 4. Okay, and this is the golden tip. And ever since I found out about this, whoa, man, my low end has just gotten astronomically better. So this is what you do. You get one of these guys, an envelope follower. Those are on the Max for Live right here, audio effect rack. And you throw it right here. And what you're going to do is then you're going to go, so you see how the envelope follower just follows the envelope of the kick, right? And so I just have it set. I just have it set like this. You can set it however you want. And then what you're going to do, you're going to go here and you're going to create this rack. And I'm going to show you how to do it. So all you do is you add an EQ8, right? And you group it, right? You have this chain, and what you are going to do, you're going to create a macro, right, for a band, right? So you're going to map band 1, you're going to map the gain on it, right? That's what you're going to do. And so you're going to set the max to -15 and the min to 0. Right? Okay. You can see where this is going. And so look what's happening. This is gonna do that, right? And so what you're gonna do, we're gonna set this guy right here. We're gonna map it. We're gonna go here. We're gonna map it. And man, does it make a difference. So I'm gonna delete this, and I'm just gonna go back and map it to my original one, how I had it. Bam. And I'm gonna A/B this for you, so you can see how the groove changes. It's definitely mixing, but it's also extremely rhythmic. It's like a low-end sidechain. I'm sure you can do as many other ways, but I found this to be an easy way to do it inside of Ableton. So man, the mix just comes to life, man, after you do that. So that is number 4. And the last tip, which is super important, compression. So you want to compress your kick. You want to compress it. You want to compress the tail of your kick so that you're telling it, I want you to have power, right? And there's a lot of low end, and low end frequencies travel a lot. So you're going to set a compressor with a really slow attack, a fast release, moderate ratio, right? And you're just gonna tame that tail to calm down. You don't want the tail to go on too long, because you want the other elements to start breathing. And so here is the way I compress the kick. So remember, slow attack. You need a release that's gonna go back by the time the kick hits again. So, here we go. So you need to release that is all the way back to 0 by the time the next kick comes in, and then I put a little bit of makeup gain, just a little bit of makeup gain, because you are decreasing some of the level, but once you increase the level, it's actually going to sound a lot better because you're giving it the right space. That's what compression is doing. You're giving things the right space in time and in volume. And so this is without. You can clearly tell that the kick is much more fitting in a single spot, in a single space and time, and when I have it off, it's going on longer. And I'm also doing this in the group, in both groups right here. So in the kick and bass group, I also do it because I want it to react to the transient of the kick, and I want that pump feeling. So I'm allowing the bass to pump with this, and I'm also taming it at the same time. So a slow attack, fast released, and this time I used a little bit of an easier ratio on it. So just slight makeup gain on it. Bam. So guys, these are your 5 tips to get the low end tight, real tight and groovy and punchy. And I promise you, if you reference the right way and you follow these steps, I promise you your low end is going to improve drastically. Peace, guys. See y'all next time.